Well, we've come together on a very sad day as Queen Elizabeth II has passed away. No? So, apparently we now will have King Charles III. I know, it's very sad. All of us here, I think it's pretty much all of us here grew up with it being Queen Elizabeth. It's this whole change, right? Yeah.
I believe they even talked about her on an I Love Lucy episode. Remember when
Oh, yeah.
Remember when she went to Europe and she wanted to bow to the Queen?
That's right. That's right. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to the first forum of the year. We're going to be doing this every month, and every month we'll have a little different flavor. There's going to be some different information shared. Today, the focus is going to be on the budget because the board did pass the budget at their board meeting last night. You may remember that the tentative budget for the college was passed in June. A tentative budget is kind of like, we read the tea leaves and try to figure out how much money we probably will have. It's tentative because we don't really know at that point in time, but we have to pass the budget because if we don't, we can't spend any money on July 1st. So, Candace Jones, our amazing Vice President of Business and Administrative Services, and her fiscal dream teams, many of whom are here in the audience, work all summer really hard to get this budget fine-tuned, answer endless questions about it, go back to the drawing board, try to figure things out, and what comes out of all of that is a really amazing budget. So we're going to start with Candace, and then after that, if there's time and people have questions, I will take questions, or all of the executive team is here. So your questions don't necessarily have to be something you think I might know the answer to, because believe me, I do not know the answer to every question. But this is about information sharing, okay? So with that, take it away, money lady.
All right, so I just did this presentation last night, so I'm going to try to have new jokes. I don't know, it's hard to say the same joke that you said last night. And we'll try to briefly get through the data and get to the question piece, because I know oftentimes folks have things that are in their mind that they just want to raise their hand, and if I'm up here just talking, it prevents us from doing that. So we'll make sure to sort of swiftly get through the information and then allow for this opportunity to ask questions of Dr. Andrew Jonas or any of the executive team that are here. But I want to carry on with Dr. Andrew Jonas's shout out to the fiscal team. So I've got budget, I've got payroll here, I've got grants accounting, I've got AP, I feel like I'm missing somebody, AP and accounts receivables. I know, that would be horrible. And so there's no way that this work can happen without sort of the collective effort of everyone sort of pitching in, making sure that we're able to close the books in June, because a lot of the adopted budget for the new fiscal year is dependent on how we closed the last fiscal year. And so there's a lot of energy and work and blood, sweat, and tears and Saturday hours and overtime just to get us done. And so all those folks, you know who you are. I'm looking at you. Thank you for your help and assistance. All right, really quickly, I'm actually going to go to this guy because this describes the words on that page. So the governor releases sort of a proposed budget in January. They work through sort of conversations at the state legislature piece. And then they sort of decide and think about buckets of investment. And so the two buckets of investment are largely going to be ongoing investments where districts will receive that funding every year after, or at least every year until there's funding available. They don't always say that, but that's probably the truth. And then one-time investments, things that there aren't going to be ongoing dollars, or districts are not going to continue to receive those. And so ongoing investments to the system certainly is the COLA. There was some, if you all have heard about the student-centered funding formula, there were some base calculation changes that impacted the budget in terms of some increases there. Some new investments. There's an investment in part-time faculty health insurance, which we're still waiting on some trailer language for. Student success completion grants and enrollment pieces, and a lot of smaller sort of ongoing investments. One-time investments typically come to us sort of like, hey, here's a bit of money based on this calculation, but we're not committing to giving it to you next year or the year after, right? They're intended to be one time. The largest that really benefits Pasadena City College is our deferred maintenance investment that has been made to the system. There were many years that PCC did not receive any deferred maintenance, or very little deferred maintenance dollars. And so in these last two fiscal years, so last fiscal year and then this fiscal year, we actually have received a good portion of deferred maintenance dollars. The unfortunate part about that is the sort of systemic neglect to the system in that category just causes our facilities to decay over time, and it actually is more costly if they're not making those investments more regularly. So we're really happy to see that. There's new district block grants for COVID that the district has applied for, retention and enrollment one-time fees, as well as a bunch of smaller, there's a technology one-time fee that's going into different districts, et cetera. So again, top one is ongoing investments, bottom are one-time investments. But always, I just want to always, we've been cautioned about sort of the doom and gloom of 25, 26, which is where they predict some budget deficits happening. But that even though that the future trend in state tax revenues increase or even stay at the levels today, that they're projecting some budget deficits in 25, 26. And so with that, myself, Dr. Andrew Jonas, the fiscal team really helps to give ourselves and do more long-term projections so that we can make really good decisions today that will impact us in 5 years. Because there are some things that we're trying to make sure that we're able to weather the storm if in fact there is a recession or we have issues that are coming in the future. But you can't sort of start with, look at all this money, and then not sort of raise awareness that the state is also projecting some budget deficits. All right, so the easiest way to talk about this is sort of how did we end this last year, and then how are we going to start the new fiscal year? So we closed fiscal year 21-22 with our total revenue being a little over $191 million. This is the unrestricted general fund. Remember, we have restricted funds. Put those aside. This is just the unrestricted general fund, which you can sort of see the categories in terms of our state apportionment, lottery, non-resident tuitions, our CalSTRS payments, et cetera, right? So that's the revenue that the college receives. And then the expenses were about $183 million, a little bit over that. And so the delta between those two is about an $8.4 million surplus. So what happens? People are like, what do you do with that money, Candace? Well, that money actually, like as if it's mine, it's not. But what do we do with when we have surplus? Well, we try to strategically think through our reserves. So the district has an we are required by our board policy to maintain an 18% reserve. So it's about 2 months of expenses so that if we were in an issue, that we could dip into the reserves to pay for some things, some unforeseen circumstance. And so anytime we have a surplus like that, it gets added to our reserve balance. And our reserve balance is a little over $40 million. So you should feel good. Your paychecks are going to cash. Like, you're not going to be like, my paycheck balance, what's going on, Pasadena City? You don't have to say that. You can feel comfortable and confident that your checks will clear every month. All right, so then that sort of takes us into how we're starting fiscal year 2022-23 with our projected revenue. which is a little over $200 million. You see that there's our state apportionment is a little bit larger than last year. That largely is some increases in COLA. Lottery went down actually because lottery is actually funded based on our FTS and our enrollment numbers. So as our enrollment numbers dip, lottery funding dips. The other thing that sort of went down was our non-resident tuition. We always make adjustments based on our international student population and their numbers. We always do CalSTRS on behalf payment. Those actually don't come into the district, they just get paid on our behalf. And then we always plan for some revenue recovery for CARES. So remember, this is our last year of CARES. So June 30th of 2023, that funding source no longer is available to the college. So then we would think about the revenue that we anticipate, right? We've got great minds in this room who do all sorts of fabulous calculations and say, here's what we think our revenue will be. We also then project our expenses. And so our expenses, salary and benefits, I always like to make sure that people understand that our largest investment for unrestricted general fund is on salary and benefits. So where we are placing our funds is actually on people. And yes, we have all these ancillary things like technology or software or office supplies and these other sorts of things, but largely the largest investment that this district makes is in its salary and benefit lines. You'll see operating expenses and services. Those are things like utilities or contracts that the district has. Some smaller outgoing transfers. We do that to other funds that require some money, like our police and parking funds get some of those transfers. And so you sort of say, okay, here's what we're projecting. Here's what we think our expense is. Hey, we've got a balanced budget. Oh, this is a big old, like, I'm going to jump somewhere else in just a second. Because you're like, what are you showing me? This is crazy. Who wants to see that little small text? All here I like to do is just to make sure that we understand when we see differences between last year and this year. And so certainly on our income, we had some unanticipated income. We did some additional drawdowns on CARES, so it's about $1.9 million. Our educational revenue augmentation, which is a local funding source, was actually down based on our projections, about $3 million. We have this new sort of unrealized gain loss on cash in. So we are required to report the value of our cash that's in the bank, and it's based on fair market value. We understand that the market right now is struggling, if no one knows that. And so right now we're in a negative scenario of 1.5 million, about close to 1.6 million in terms of the value of our cash in the bank. People say, how could that possibly be? A dollar is a dollar. Well, greater minds than us sort of say, hey, we have to sort of be able to reflect and apply these sort of calculation discount ranks on those dollars so we can then express that in an accounting way. Expenses continue to be down because of COVID. We haven't completely rebounded, right? We don't have as many classes that we do. So we still go with classes that aren't filled or classes that don't fill that we then don't have to pay instructors for because those classes get canceled. And so those are budgeted items that we keep, and we want to make sure that we're ready for that when our classes and our enrollment numbers continue to go up, because that's, if you say it out loud, it'll happen, just so you know. If you say it out loud, it will happen as our enrollment numbers go up. So we expect those expenses to go up. And then the largest other thing that was down is our services line, which is about $4 million down in expenses. So then this is probably the easier. So we always, every fiscal year, myself, Jesse, Dr. Jonas, we try to sort of think through what are the project lists that we want to take funds from the unrestricted general fund and pass it elsewhere to support other project initiatives. So the largest one this year that we're transferring to is transferred to was our capital outlay fund. So remember, when I said there were years and years without deferred maintenance or very small dollars of deferred maintenance, well, you have been in our classrooms. Y'all have been in our buildings, right? And so there's a lot of work that needs to happen. And so it's our intention then to say, okay, if we can earmark some funds for things like gender-neutral bathrooms or lactation rooms, that we want to intentionally do that and then transfer some funds to capital outlay to make those projects happen. So there's a project list that supports the transfer. As well as there's about $4 million that's transferred into our property and liability lines, as well as our OPEB, our employment benefits. What is it, Jesse? Employment benefits. Yeah, or I got that mixed up. Whatever, you get it. You know the words, put them in the right order. So we transfer there because we are obligated to also contribute to those pieces, and so we pre-fund those liabilities. This is kind of more of that same. We always want to share with the community what our budgeted FTE positions are. One key thing to note is that we always are required, the district is required to assert that we have complied with the 50% law, which is that 50% of our budget has to go to instructional activities, and so, yay, we complied. We were like, we slimmed in there, so we're going to be watching that number for this next fiscal year, but we're 50%, 50.29%. So we did it, but we're going to be more cognizant of that going into this next fiscal year. These are our budgeted positions for 21-22. The budgeted positions of 22-23, so we're growing a little bit by 8 positions between those lines. Everybody always asks about this CARES funding. Poor Bridget. Because if they ask me, I ask her. And so she and her team help to manage those funds and help give us spend those funds are, and they keep really good track and records so that when we get audited, I say when we get audited because people think that we won't be audited on these funds, that we have the appropriate documentation to support the drawdowns for those funds. So just really quickly, the district received on our institutional portion $64 million just in the institutional portion to help combat the issues related to COVID and any additional expenses. So we apply those things to like our PPE, all of our ventilation changes around campus. We have some staffing, some additional staffing. So a lot of this funding, especially when our classes were 50%, we had other adjuncts kind of help support those splitting of classes where now we needed more folks to handle the load. And so we're able to offload those costs to CARES. And so you'll see sort of the rundown. So our first year started at 64, we got to 51. At the end of this fiscal year, so 6/30 of 2022, we spent, 33 million, another 2 million, so we got down to 16 million. Whereas now we've already started in the new fiscal year, and so we have some money that's already encumbered. So the remaining balance as of the date when this was run, which was probably like a week ago or so, we had 13 million, almost 13.5 million that we need to designate between now and June 30th of 2023. A lot of those things actually, which is great, we're able to support some of the student kinds of activities out of this funding pool. So things like the free U-Pass for students, our transit passes are paid out of these funds, which is really great. Did you see the little line on the first day, people getting their bus passes? So that was really great. We also support, I'm sure you heard of the Bookstore Credit. So we support the Bookstore Credit, the $200 per semester using these fees. We cover materials fees as well as health fees for our students. So everything that we can do, and we also cover this semester and next semester, we're going to be covering the parking fees for our students. Yes, you guys have to pay the $20. Yes, you do. But for our students whose actual parking fees are greater than ours, so just be clear, they pay like almost double of what we pay. What is the 3 for? Yeah, 3 times as much as we pay. So we're going to go ahead and give them a little pass and cover their parking this year. So that's the institutional portion, and we're going to be thinking through, again, making sure that we're on track to expend those funds by the deadline, or this woman will be like, what are you doing? I got to get this funding out. Then we have the student portion, which is an additional $41 million. So thinking about the two funding sources, PCC received over $100 million in CARES funding from the start of the pandemic to today. So that's significant. So these dollars actually go straight to students, right? They get dispersed via financial aid based on their estimated family contributions and where those gaps are, and so we try to fill those gaps. There's also an emergency aid process that Student Services helps to lead, and if students need to raise their hand because they have additional concern or care, or they need some additional support, they can do that, and these are the funds that are used. So first year, 41 million, we got down to 28. This last, when we closed our books, 12 million, and so we have a little bit, $12.5 million to expend this fall and the spring semester to our students. All right, the last thing I just want to kind of quickly cover is lots of folks think that when we do the adopted budget, I mean, we're technically only required to really report on the unrestricted general funds, but I think it's important that the college understand that the $200 million in unrestricted general fund is matched by the restricted fund. So we have a little, it's like 193 or something million dollars in restricted funds for the college. And that's revenue for the college as well. So there isn't sort of like which value of green is better. It's both green. And we use it strategically to support a host of initiatives based on the rules for restricted funds, but it is a valid funding source that we use, that the colleges need, that we need in order to support a host of programming on campus. So just really quickly, I'll just show our top 10 investments on grants and capital outlay. So what I did here was just pull our largest, so the total funds available is $193 million. These are the top 10, excluding the LA Region Consortium. I did pull those numbers out because they skew it a little bit. Not that they're not important, because they are important, but I did pull them, so I just want to own and honor that. But look at that large 34% of those funds that we're managing, their CARES. So the one thing that everybody should remember and think about is those funds are going away. So we need to be thoughtful about what items should continue and then how we're going to be planning those things in future years. So can all of this stuff continue on? The answer is no. It's a significant amount of money. But we do need to tag the items that should, and those should be in your annual budget planning process, right? So as you're thinking about, hey, I use CARES for these things, you should be thoughtful about what, if it needs to go forward, you got to put it in your annual plans. Student equity, credit assisted triple SP dollars, we sort of combine those together. Those are significant restricted fund investments for the college. We have Pasadena Promise Grant through financial aid. DSPS and EOPS have large funding pools that are restricted funds, guided pathways. In the board meetings, you may, if you listen into them every so often, some do, all right. You often hear that the NSF micro nano tech education, there's a lot of subawards that go through the board agenda, and so that's also a significant restricted fund. And then our last year when we closed the books, these were the top 10 capital outlay Fund 41, specific to Fund 41, because we have Fund 42, Fund 43, but I just pulled the Fund 41 items. So we expended almost $18 million last fiscal year. A lot of that went into our Serafian building replacement. Some encumbered, and these are like, some of these are encumbered expenses that there's intention to go to purchase those items. If they're not completed, that's okay, but we tag them if we've encumbered any funding against them. The other large one is our power distribution center, which is going to support our new Serafian building and potentially a new STEM building on the east side of campus. Octagon, if you didn't know, we own property. Did you know? Who knew that we owned property on Bonnie, and also, yeah, thank you. And so we also have to we like to be good landlords. We try to be diligent in keeping those properties up to standard, as our tenants are certainly paying rent on those pieces that come back into the district, but there's a lot of upkeep that has to happen on those properties. Whew. That's it? Are there any sort of general questions about the budget that I can help field, or? Woohoo, I'm gonna, like when you run, when you hear that moment of silence and you just sound like, I'm gonna exit stage left, I'm gonna do that now just in case there are other questions.
Oh, just in case there are. Yay, congratulations. Good job, good job. So clearly we're on pretty solid foundation there in terms of finances, and thank you again to the Fiscal Dream Team. There's a lot that goes into it, and I think this presentation really makes that clear. So, are there other questions about stuff happening with PCC? Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes. Laura, do you want to?
Can I make a request? When we're answering, let's talk to the mic so we can do video later. So
Yeah.
restate the question and then talk. Sure.
Okay, Laura's. Oh, you can go.
So we have to submit a report actually in November for next year's fawn. We're a year out, so we met the faculty obligation number for this year. The numbers that I think you're seeing there as far as meeting the 50% law includes academic administrators, because I believe that number does include that, not just faculty. So we've had a lot of retirements this year. We will be hiring for the following academic year. I don't have an exact number yet. The application for that hiring process is actually going to go out, I believe, at the end of this week. So very soon, tomorrow. Okay, so what the decline? Yes, because, well, what's happening with the FTS is we get funded we determine our fawn, the state determines our fawn based on funded FTS, and we're being funded at the hold harmless rate. So because we're being funded at the hold harmless rate, our fawn still is in agreement with that, right? So even though we have lower FTS, the fawn is not really going to change, and because we had retirements, we will be hiring. Moving forward, that may change. Was there another piece to that?
Well, we are hiring.
Yes.
We just don't know how many. It's an art. So if you think what you saw in the calculations that Candace and her team had to do, on the instructional side of it, there's a similar, if this number is here and this number is here and how many people add up to an FTE, it's the calculation of the faculty obligation number is, I talk about complicated. These are all complicated, and that's super complicated.
And I will share one other thing. We do get fined if we don't respond. So
Yes.
I want to make sure that we are.
So what she just said is that we do get fined if we don't meet our faculty obligation number. The amount that we get fined is what the state pays us, which is about $73,000 per position. Now, some colleges, when they have difficult times, say, our faculty obligation number requires us to, let's say, hire 20 people. But we don't think we have the funding to hire 20 people, so we're just going to hire 10, and we're going to take the fine. I have to tell you, the reason that as a superintendent, president at 2 different institutions, and prior to that as an executive vice president, I would never pay the fine, because paying the fine is like taking $73,000 in $1 bills, putting it in the middle of the room and setting fire on it. It's like it is nothing. But even if you have to hire, which means you hire somebody, you're paying them full-time salary, you're paying them benefits, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. The fact is they're here and they're delivering services and instruction to our students. And even if it is a financial crunch for the institution, it's better for the students and it's not a waste of money, because you always have to balance, how do we make sure that we're doing what we need to do for students, even if we have to, kind of magically do things. And sometimes when I was a president in the LACCD, we used to call it the magic money, the money that came at the end of the year that somehow made it all right. We've always figured it out, and because we put the students first. So, okay, other questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? Oh, you guys are so shy. Yeah, I know, exactly. No? Everybody's happy to have some students on campus? Yeah, yay. Oh, I have a question. Can you bring the microphone over to Darlene, please? Darlene Inda, could you please tell these fabulous folks all about Sodexo and our food services?
Well,
Well,
we're working
kinda.
on it. Hello?
No, it's being taped. It's being recorded, so you need one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
So as you guys know, we have awarded our food service to Sodexo. They're currently in the Piazza now. They're ready to go. We actually just got, the reason why it's taken a couple weeks is our lovely City of Pasadena Health Department is really fast. Just kidding. They're actually not fast. And so we've had to kind of jump through a lot of hoops because the actual facility's been down for over 2 years. And unfortunately, when it's over 2 years, they require you to go through a full plan review. So it's not just a simple change of ownership, unfortunately. So it's required a lot, but we got the letter last night. I got it. That was my, yeah. I just returned to Vegas, 1-0, but that was a win for me when I got home because I was like, yes. So we have our health inspection scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. So
Awesome.
if everything goes good, I mean, literally, Sodexo has the button ready to push for the order, and we should be open for business. I'm hoping like the very next day at the very latest. I guess it'd be Wednesday. But it's a daily check-in with Sodexo to just stay on top of everything. So I appreciate your patience. And we've been trying to come up with creative ideas for students.
What are we doing?
Saw the line yesterday. They were giving out free food,
Nice.
last night for the evening hours because the food trucks just weren't generating, enough and they're quite pricey, to be honest with you. So we're trying to come up with creative solutions for the students, but we're hoping to have actual yummy, good food next week. So.
Yes, yay. And I will say that this also included, in addition to the health department reviewing everything, all of our machinery had to be certified all over again. So we had individuals coming at 1 a.m. to go through, on the weekend, to go through all of the machinery to recertify it. And, that was a way to get it done in a timely manner. And, I mean, it's a lot has gone into that.
And I have one more I'm looking at right after this meeting, a refrigerator. So.
Yeah, well, that's good. Awesome. It's funny. So speaking about food trucks being really expensive, it's shocking. Like, the great food truck race on, Food Network, it's great. But some of those episodes are like, we'd like you to make your style of nachos. And they're like, oh, yes, I'm going to make, these nachos and for $20 a serving. And I just sit there and think, well, they look good, but I'm not paying $20 for a serving of that. And so some of those food trucks, you do walk by and you're like, seriously?
They're more, I would say they're more boutique-ish.
Yeah.
Because now, another reason for that too is the city of Pasadena, their restrictions for food trucks are very, very stringent. So people don't want to go through the process. So don't let that deter you, because you can go to LA County and get tacos still for $2 instead of food truck in LA.
There
So,
are food trucks
yeah,
you can have.
You
yeah.
can, just not here in
Yeah.
Pasadena.
So that is very exciting. We're going to finally have food back. And that also includes catering too. Do you want, could you speak to catering?
Sorry, just kidding. So catering, they already have their menu up and running, ready to go. That will begin October, if not sooner. They were just trying to give themselves a little bit of grace just to get open and everything. So October catering will also begin. And they will have their website. You can go onto the website, place your order. They'll be doing, you can do your usual like you did before with the blanket purchase order so that they'll bill you. What they are going to do also is they're going to do kind of like a mini grand opening where we're going to try to get them into circadian, and they're just going to kind of showcase what they're going to be offering so you can taste it and you can, see what you're going to get. So, but I will say the food is very, very good, and Tunisia can attest to that too, because she doesn't eat hamburgers and she ate a hamburger. So,
Whoa.
and she
okay.
really liked it. So
That's going some. Yeah.
no, but the food is very good. It is very good.
And the person on this campus who will be the happiest, I mean, seriously, the happiest to have a catering menu is Armina Galukian, who has devoted, I don't even know how many hours to ordering catered food over the last 2 years throughout this pandemic. I mean, seriously, like, this is huge. It's really huge.
I hope you love them, and if you guys don't, please, I want comments, concerns, anything, please send them my way. We'll also be, we will have a food service committee too that will meet so that, we make sure we'll have everybody from all the different constituent groups just to make sure that we stay on top of everything. So if there's any questions and concerns, though, please, open door policy, send me email, whatever. I'm here, so.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, I did have office hours, my first set of office hours for staff this morning. I had 2. That's okay. It was great. Had nice conversation. They took some candy. Remember, there is candy. And there are certain people in the room whose initials are Crystal Cole Ross, who do stop by to get candy in the middle of the day. So even if it's not an office hour, you are welcome to come by. Yeah, you are. There's always a dish of peanut M&Ms. So there's always a dish of peanut M&Ms in individual packets. I'm not weird, okay? And then there's the jar that has all kinds of candy. I will tell you that you all over the last year have made your wishes known. Would anybody like to guess the one candy bar that is just not going to appear in my jar once they're all gone? Yes, Mounds. Y'all didn't want the Mounds? In fact, one day, because people do come in and take candy, right? One day I came into my office and I looked at the jar and I realized there's nothing in there except Mounds. So that means that people had gone in and dug all around. So there were no Kit Kats, there were no Reese's, there were no Snickers, there was nothing. There was just a pile of Mounds, or a mound of Mounds, So there will be no more Mounds once these are gone. Just saying. Yeah, anybody else? I mean, because I got a pile. Okay, good. Good to know. Good to know. I got into the habit of having candy that I know people like when I was at Oxnard College as the executive vice president, because I noticed that the president of the college always seemed to have a Kit Kat in his hand. Always. He had Kit Kats. So I got a bowl and I put Kit Kats in them, and after a few times of coming into my office, he sat down and he said, "Wow, you always have Kit Kats." I said, "Yeah, because you like them. That's why I have them." And Darlene is saying yes, because she knows. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to offer one more time. Any other questions or comments? The other thing I also want to offer is that, we are going to do this once a month. And so if there's a particular theme or topic that you would like the executive team or myself to cover, just let us know what that is, and we can build the forum around that topic. We might have something around human resources and negotiations or something, or we could do something around construction. We could do something around professional development. Oh, we're going to do emergency preparedness. That's right. So we have training tomorrow, but it would be great to do a forum around emergency preparedness. We actually started trying to, kind of update what we were doing. Well, we started that in February of 2020. I'm not sure what happened, but it kind of got lost. We were a little busy. So now we're back to it, and we've got some great updates to provide, so we will do emergency preparedness. And do we know off the top of our heads what the great shakeout date is by any chance? Okay, Thursday, October 20th, probably at 10:20? 10:20, October 20th will be the great shakeout. You'll hear more about that shortly, but our emergency training will be part of that too. Anything else, folks? Okay, I do feel like I'm teaching a class again. All the good students are in the front row, Ernesto and Candace. All right, folks, well, with that, thank you for coming, and looking forward to having these once a month. And don't forget to come to my office hours, especially if you don't like mountains. Oh, I gotta make you some puppy chows.